Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am so excited to be here with an incredible panel of marketing and product leaders from Acton. Here at Demand Factor, we have the privilege of partnering with Acton on several initiatives, from lead generation programs to educational events just like this one. And it's always a great experience collaborating with their team. So we're excited to host and moderate today's session. We have four panelists joining us today. And although their experience spans far and wide, I will keep the introductions short and sweet because we have a lot of ground to cover. So starting with Kat Guyvit, Head of Demand Generation. Kat brings over 12 years of experience leading digital transformations for global brands, blending data-driven strategy with creative vision. Jennifer Blanco, Head of Customer Marketing, with 13 years in B2B SaaS marketing. Jennifer develops strategies that foster customer loyalty and long-term success. Matt Thaler, Head of Creative. Matt has more than a decade of experience in brand, content, and copywriting, creating standout experiences for marketing professionals. And last but not least, we have Nate Minier, Head of Product Marketing. Nate has a rich background in software as a consultant, analyst, and product marketer with a deep passion for technology. Today, they will be diving into key findings from Acton's new Marketing Technology Insights report, packed with actionable strategies that will help you build a modern marketing playbook. So to kick things off, I'm going to hand it over to our lead panelist from Acton, Matt Thaler.
Thank you so much, Skylar. Yeah, the biggest trend we saw in the research, and the one that is really going to shape everything else that we'll discuss today, is that marketing teams are running leaner than ever. The data that we found shows 85% of teams have 10 or fewer people, which we thought was small. I think of the 30, 40 person marketing stand-ups of my youth and get a little nostalgic for it. But today's reality is a little different. And yet, we're a lean team here at Acton comparatively. I think a lot of teams out there are lean, and we love what we do, and we love marketing. And so you can really thrive with a lean team. And so that's, I think, what we want to really focus on today. How can you do that? The reality is, combined with economic uncertainty, there's a lot of pressure on us to deliver, but we're marketers. We can do it. We can adapt, and we can make that happen. So I want to bring in the rest of my panelists here. How does this reality of small teams and big expectations show up in your worlds? I want to start with Kat. From a demand gen perspective, what do you think is the biggest challenge working with a lean team?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And thanks, Skylar, for the great introduction. I think a big pain point is that balance between high expectations and limited resources. As demand gen leaders, we're asked to report on revenue impact, and where you're working with a lean team, or when you're working with a lean team, that margin for error really disappears. Our research confirmed that is the number one pain point for marketers, is the internal resource gap. And too often, legacy tools can make it worse by creating reporting gaps. So I think for lean teams, having an intuitive platform that makes it easy to tie demand gen activities to revenue isn't just a feature, it's a must-have for success.
Yeah, and that's an amazing segue, Kat, to what I wanted to ask Jennifer. Jennifer, how do you see our customers doing what Kat said, adapting their use of the platform to cope with this smaller team size and really getting more out of the functionality?
Yeah. Well, hey everybody, since this is my first question, Jennifer Blanco. I represent customer marketing, so I'm always going to try to bring this back and inject voice of the customer here. But I think what we all know and have started to experience over the last couple years is that marketing teams are continually starting to get cut, and we're still kind of expected to deliver exactly what we were as a little bit larger of a team. And so you have to do that by really using the tools that you have today, and really making sure that you're getting the most out of them. And sort of what comes to my mind is I've had a couple of customers where maybe somebody has left the team and they still need social up and running, and like we have a social capability tool that somebody else was using, and they get in there and they make sure that they keep social up and running, and like they've said literally that it was a lifesaver. They didn't have to go and hire somebody right away. Like their brand identity and their messaging was still getting out there. So as long as you sort of know what tools you have and what all of the capabilities are, I think that's the key for small teams. And another thing that I think about, and like this is something that we're all continually working on too, it's just communication, right? I know that that's like simple and probably a basic for a lot of people, but really making sure that you have great communication channels, because in order to kind of show that your team is small but mighty, you need to be able to internally talk about what you're doing, so everybody at the company knows how the team is performing and excelling, and continuing to deliver what's expected of them, even though they're a little bit smaller.
Thanks, Jennifer. And I want to add a point because I think we often focus on the sort of executive or leadership expectations with leaner teams, but as the content person and creative director on the team, I think about the audience and the user experience, right? And I think we should also point out that their expectations are not changing with a lean team, right? You can't say, well, that content was subpar because we have a leaner team. No, they don't want to hear that. They want to see the content and the experience that they want. And so, Nate, we've talked a little bit about content, but from a product marketing perspective, I'm really interested how this tension shows up. What's the biggest go-to-market challenge in your mind with a leaner team?
Yeah, no, it definitely is, because I think, product marketing is a function that there are a lot of pieces of it that can exist outside of the demand gen funnel, which tends to be, the major focus for most marketing organizations. And so I think, it's great if you have a huge team of product marketers, but oftentimes marketing teams find themselves, working with either one or two, or sometimes no product marketers at all, which basically, in those situations, it means that either all or large parts of the product marketing function fall to the rest of the marketing team. And, I think the big focus there is, just making sure that that there is a plan for who owns the go-to-market strategy, right? Making sure that somebody is on top of the cool new offerings that product is going to be releasing, and is doing the research to create compelling stories in terms of the value that they bring. And then the other end, I think, ensuring that marketing staying close to sales, right? Because there's often a lot of things that product marketers will do, helping sales with enablement and training. And then there are a lot of other sort of things, external market factors that product marketers will often help with, things like competitive intelligence, pricing, and packaging. Are all things that, if you have a shortage of product marketers, can very easily fall to the side.
Yeah, great point, Nate. And I like that you called out sales, because I think that's something we should think about too as marketers. Like, we're of course marketers, so we think of the marketing team, but with the economic realities right now and what companies are doing to adapt, we're not the only teams that are leaner, right? So how can you, be there for your sales team that might be running lean, or your product team that might be running lean? We're all in this together, and we can really kind of help each other out, I think. And so that reality of being on a lean team, as we've just discussed, has really forced us to rethink our relationship with technology in a major way, which really brings us to our next finding from our report, the ease of use mandate, as we're calling it. And the data here around ease of use was really overwhelming. 75% of marketers in our survey ranked ease of use as their top priority when choosing a platform. We thought it would be high, but that actually took us by surprise of just how high that was. And we're happy about it, because I think we really see the value in that. So Jennifer, I wanted to start with you. Why has easy become the most important word in MarTech?
Yeah, well, we were actually all talking about this a little bit earlier, and I was equating ease of use to speed, and adoption, right? And proof of concept and ROI. And I think that that's really key here. I spent the last week on site with a customer, and they were all talking about how easy it's been to onboard Acton. And, obviously, as a customer marketer and somebody that represents the brand, like, that was music to my ears. But also, like, that's just an expectation that we have today as marketers, right? We've all grown up now in the world where, you have an iPhone that has incredible UI at your fingertips, or maybe you have an Android that also has some great UI experiences too. You log into your TV and you see Netflix, and it's showing you the content that you want to be watching. Or maybe, as marketers out there, you're addicted to Canva like I am, and it makes you look like an amazing designer, even though you are not a designer. And so anything that can be adapted quickly, and just like right out of the gate ends up like beating and exceeding expectations, that's what's going to win in today's day and age, right? And so you have to be able to show up for your customers. You have to meet them where they're at. You have to meet and exceed their expectations. And that essentially means that you offer something that's super intuitive, that's easy to use. And that speed piece, like I'm sure all of us, we want more time. We need more time, right? And so if people can adopt your platform quickly, they can use it really intuitively, get done what they need to get done, so then they can get on to the next thing on their list, right? Because we all have these to-do lists that we're trying to like tick off. Like that's where people are gonna win. So to me, yes, like 75% was pretty jaw-dropping. But then when you kind of like peel back the onion and you think about it, you're also like, well, yeah, that's also like what my basic like just expectation is today.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't see that as super crazy, but I think that that's something that people are going to continue to take into consideration, and something like we're going to see in buying cycles much more as people start to look at the product and think about the team that they have, or think about the time that they have. Like, how am I going to be able to adopt this tool, and how is it going to be accepted by my team?
Yeah, it's such a great point, Jennifer. And I want to thank you for being platform agnostic and mentioning Android. Also, I think the ease of use thing is something that I think for the on the ground users of products like Acton is really obvious and intuitive. I think it's on those of us who are those day-to-day people, or uh, representing them in a way, to find a way to tell that message to the leadership at the company and talk about what you said, how that translates to speed, how that translates to proving ROI faster, how that translates to tangible business outcomes, because ease of use might not always to them ring the bell as being really impactful, but it actually is. Nate, I know we think about this a lot when we're developing new products, so I'm curious for your perspective on, how do we directly address this ease of use mandate when we develop products and features?
Yeah, I think as Jen very accurately said, like expectations are extremely high. Users are used to mobile apps that, and have had in some cases millions of dollars in terms of development poured into their user experiences. And for as a software company, it is making business software. It is it's a challenge, right, to create something intuitive, right? You have a range of folks out there who are used to different types of backgrounds. You've got Windows users who want to right click on everything, people who have, really love tablets and want to drag and drop. And I think, it requires a lot of thoughtful design as well as user testing to really strike that right balance where you get to a user experience that is really easy for a broad audience. There's also, I think, the workflow, I think, is also incredibly important too. Making sure that you create a light, flexible workflow that provides doesn't bombard the user with a ton of buttons and controls, and lets them kind of work quickly, and in a way that's not overwhelming, but also gives them control over those very specific things that they do care about. And I think again, it's the balance that every software company is trying to strike right now.
Yeah, and I think that makes a really perfect segue into our next topic, which is the elephant in every room right now, not just this room, AI, right? Because while AI can seem really complex, the data shows marketers want it to deliver a very specific kind of strategic value. We found marketers are more interested in AI for strategy and recommendations. That came in at 71%, as you can see, than pure content generation, which came in at 44%. So still a tangible piece, but strategy and recommendations really coming out on top there. Kat, I'm really curious, as the demand and strategy lead, how you see this. How should marketers think about using AI as more of a strategic partner?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. AI is more than a tactical tool. In demand gen, one way that we're using AI is, using AI and the value it brings with processing buyer signals across the journey and really turning those signals into actionable insights. So, whether it's AI recommended lead scoring or optimizing our channel mix allocation, I think lean teams can really benefit from AI. Kind of going back to the focus of the webinar, is that like lean teams can benefit from AI as it really helps them work smarter, faster, and helps with the data-driven decisions.
Yeah, and I would just say like, to your intro here with this, Matt, like AI is it might be the elephant in the room, but don't be scared of it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't
At the
poo-poo
elephant.
it. Um, like to Kat's point, it's gonna make you look smarter. And if you're not using it today, you're gonna be left behind. And so it's like, you have an extra data analyst now at your fingertips, or maybe you have, data that you're trying to mine, and you kind of are asking it all of the basic questions, and then you can actually think about AI. Like we use it internally as a thought partner, right? So like think of it as your thought partner and say, okay, you analyze this data. Are there things that I'm missing here? Are there other trends? Are there questions that I'm not asking that I should be? Like really use it to your advantage. And talking again about like going back to speed, if you can use AI to get the answers that you need really quickly, you're going to be able to iterate, right? And that's one of the ways that you can actually act as a much larger team than you really are. Because if you have AI at your fingertips telling you how you can make changes, you can quickly start to pivot different campaigns and make small tweaks here and there in order to elevate, your overall performance. So it's a huge tool that we now have in our toolbox.
Yeah, Nate.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Jen. Just to like piggyback on that, I use AI all the time for campaign analysis. A lot of time, I think a lot of demand gen leaders can relate to this, is you might get campaign ideas from different areas of the company, and it's always good to do that quick analysis of addressable market.
Mhm.
You do your pilot and you hypothesize, like, if it's successful, can we grow at scale? Is it worth the juice from the squeeze? And that's something that, whether you have a data analyst or you do yourself, which I often do, if you use AI to help you input all of the data and it spits out the information, it's very quick. And it's also a great way to analyze, should we really invest in this campaign, or do we have other areas that might drive more return on investment? So really great point around speed and using it as like a data analyst to help you with your campaign decisions.
Great. We're all
Yeah,
trying to
Nate,
work
how can you use
smarter.
Nate, how can you use it to bring how can you use AI to bring to bear on the marketing automation platforms and just the sheer amount of data they have? Because I think there's probably some really good tips that you have for that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I think it's one that is that's being actively actively answered, because there are a lot of opportunities. Marketing automation solutions are incredibly data rich, even compared to a lot of other enterprise software solutions. When you think about, like, your marketing automation solution is tracking every email click and open, and a lot of teams are sending out thousands of emails, every web page visit, social media likes, all these tiny little engagement points. It is an insane amount of engagement data. And while there's been some cool reporting and some cool insights available, I think for the software engineers that build these products, I think there's always been the feeling like a lot more is possible here. And I think the really cool thing with AI is it has the ability to detect patterns across huge data sets in a way that conventional software and sort of the standard set of human analysis really struggles to do. And I think a great example of that is a product that Acton just launched in beta called True Open, which analyzes email clicks and opens, and pays attention to very small nuances in the behavior data to make a determination on whether or not that click or opens coming from a human or coming from a security bot. And I think that's just a great example of something that prior to AI, was challenging to do, but with the kind of incredible pattern recognition that AI can deliver across these huge data sets, is now possible. And I think you're going to see a lot of really cool things like that continue to come out.
Yeah, I think True Open's going to be a real game changer. When it comes to content, I wanted to speak a little to this because I think, if you don't have writers and designers on your teams, you can leverage AI to get more done. But a few sort of guardrails I like to put on that when I talk about this is, first of all, AI can't be that original. It's not the way it's built, right? Generative AI, I'm talking about, of course, is, taking a lot of training data that it has, absorbed and then returning outputs to you, right? So part of the process is don't necessarily use it for the parts of your content and creative plan that require more originality. And there's a lot of things you can use it for that fit this bill. Certain SEO topics that are fairly covered out there, but you want to have some content on FAQ sections, things like that. So that's part of it. You can also use it as an ideation partner, and you can also use it to generate more original content. But when you do that, my rule of thumb really is to engage with it much like you would with a writer. Probably what you've all heard before in some form or another is that the quality of the input into AI is really going to determine the quality of your output, right? And so if you're giving it just kind of a quick 1-sentence prompt for, a 1,000-word article or a, long ebook, you're not necessarily going to get what you're looking for, and you're going to get something that maybe isn't the quality you expect. And so brief it in, get a brief, that you turn into a prompt that's, much like a brief you would give to a human writer. Go through the strategic underpinnings of what you're trying to do, talk about the audience. AI will be able to, take that in and give you a response that's closer to what you want. And then, of course, with AI, we're still in that era where there's hallucinations, there's mistakes, there's things it'll do where it kind of seeks your approval, right? And so it'll kind of tell you what you want to hear, and you have to check that a little bit, make sure you're checking for inaccuracies. You can't really take the human reviewers out of that at this point. You still want to bring them into the process. And so, I think that gives a really good transition to the next topic we wanted to talk about, which is, we have a lot of things we can do, lean teams with AI, with easy to use tools, but none of that really matters, as we know, if we can't prove our value as marketers. And so for our final topic, let's talk about that, the playbook for success, which really starts with closing the reporting gap. Our research showed a major disconnect, and the reporting gap is what we're calling it. Marketers need conversion and ROI data, but that's what's missing from most of their tools. From a content perspective, the metric that matters more than downloads, obviously, is influence on the pipeline. So panel, what's one actionable step the rest of you would give our audience to better connect their marketing efforts to revenue? Let's start with Kat. From a demand perspective, what's the real unlock there? How do you measure the ROI of your marketing activities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's critical to tighten the connection between your marketing automation solution and your CRM. Having a bi-directional sync, so you can really understand the campaign impact on the pipeline and revenue. Of course, as like a subset, adding rigor around your tracking tags will also help and give you the line of sight that you need with that report. But at the end of the day, you're really trying to measure ROI in terms of business impact. So, closed deals, the revenue, pipeline velocity, and customer acquisition costs. That's really how marketing proves that it's accelerating revenue and not just generating MQLs.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I really want to underline figuratively here the map to CRM bidirectional sync. It's so important. If you're not looking at the most up-to-date data, like it's going to lead you down the wrong path, right? And so Jennifer, how can users leverage their current platform to get closer to that true ROI measure?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's just call it what it is. It can be really hard.
Yeah.
This is obviously it scored highly in our survey for a reason. because this is something that everybody's constantly trying to do, but it just seems that nobody's quite cracked the nut on the exact way how to do it and to connect all of the dots. So it is hard, and you have to really figure out, like Kat mentioned, a lot of different things that demand gen teams are using. On the customer side, it's a little bit different, right? Like I'm trying to look at influence for like and determine, who should we put into some sort of like upsell nurtures, or how am I influencing renewals and retention rates and that sort of thing. So there's always a different way that you're trying to measure, what is the ROI of what you're doing. And I think that you really need to start looking at things holistically. It's not just one piece. So, Kat, I think you have a really good stat on like how many touch points it takes to convert somebody.
Yeah, on average, so like by like one person, it takes up to 18 touches. But when you look at like today's software purchasers, there's always a buying committee. It's usually made up of about 6 people. And so you amplify those number of touches, and it's over 60
Okay, I'm gonna have
touches.
to go because that's a lot of content. I got to make it all.
Right. But like that's just shows you the breadth of like how much it is that you're trying to track, and it's not just one person, it's a committee. And oh, by the way, maybe they're, finding you on sort of like they're starting to look on dark social, and like that's where you pop up like on LinkedIn ads that maybe can't be tracked, or somebody posts something from, your company, and you start to get on their radar. There's the whole GEO like world now, is how is AI impacting, search results. Then you
Reddit is
have,
a big thing now.
oh
Just
yeah,
everything.
Reddit is huge. You have, peer-to-peer review sites like a G2 or Trust Radius, Gartner Peer Insights that people are looking at and like getting information. So there's so much even happening outside of the traditional funnel that can't be measured, that it makes it even a little bit harder. But I think going back to, you guys both touched on like the bidirectional sync, and I think like CRM data is key here, right? And Nate already talked about like data, like how much data you now have. And so some of this actually is probably even tying back into AI, and how can you start to dump some of this into AI and really map out the customer journey, right? Like those are the ways that you can start to try to crack some of these nuts. Is like we all know that there's definitely some sort of a path that people are taking, but we can't quite figure it out. Like that's a great use case for AI. Dump a bunch of the data in there and get the really holistic picture of like the actual account, versus an individual, what is their journey. So the more that you can do there to kind of unlock that, obviously the better. But I guess I started out saying that this was hard. And it's hard. But obviously there's a lot that you can do to try to unpack this. And I think like we all feel the pain, but we're all trying to solve this every day. And it's actually a very exciting time to try to solve this in the world that we're living in with AI at our fingertips.
Yeah, and I know the product is really evolving to make this revenue connection clearer, Nate. It's blurred, so you can't see it, but back there, a lot of engineers are busily working on it. So tell us a little bit about how the product is evolving to really make this connection clearer.
Yeah, I think, one thing is giving people a large amount of flexibility in terms of how they report on their data. In Acton, we have basically embedded a full BI suite into the product. Just because, we found that, there are definitely some standard ways marketers like to report, but, you don't have to work in marketing automation very long to come across a customer whose business model means that they need to report in a different non-standard way. And so giving them that full BI suite is sort of was our way of accommodating that. The other thing that with that BI suite too is, we put in an AI data agent as well, which is incredibly helpful because, as Jen said, this stuff is hard, and it's hard to perform the analysis. And with the AI data agent, it's a great tool where you can just have a natural conversation and say, hey, I'd like to talk about email performance, and bit by bit, it'll show you data, and you can ask, you can just kind of Q&A it, and it will provide visualizations and provide insights and answers along the way. And we find for a lot of users that that's a big game changer. Just being able to almost like work with an AI data analyst to get those insights that you need.
Yeah, I need that AI data analyst in my life. I'm a humanities major back in the day, so it's not my first language. It's great. Okay, so that kind of wraps up our planned questions, but I wanted to go around for just one final quick soundbite, 30-second or less recommendation for lean marketers. What's your sort of top takeaway? Let's start with Jennifer.
This is very hard to pick just one. Obviously, if the customer marketer part of me wants to say, focus on existing customers. It's much easier to retain your existing customers than it is to go out and get new ones. And everything that we were talking about, with like mining your data, you should be doing that with your customers too. So they're giving you data, figure out, how you can expand with them, figure out how you can retain them, figure out, when potentially what are the signals to look for when maybe customers are starting to look to leave you. So use AI in that sense. And, I love AI. I use it all day, every day, and would be happy to chat with anybody about how I am using AI as a marketer, because I think that we all need to help each other more. But that's going to be one of your keys to success to being able to survive in a small team for sure.
Excellent. Kat, over to you for your top takeaway.
Yeah, like Jen, I can't do just one. I've got two.
That's okay. Yeah, we'll allow it.
So one, I think lean doesn't mean limited. I think building a culture of experimentation where small wins compound. I think a scrappy test and learn mindset is what makes lean teams outperform expectations. And then two, a critical takeaway is simplify your stack and automate wherever possible. Every hour saved on process is an hour you can spend on strategy focused on driving revenue impact.
Well, wonderful. I love that.
Good one.
I'm going to give mine, which is a little touchy feely, but that's okay. I'm the creative here, so I can do that. Mine is don't give up the parts of your job that you love to AI, right? Give AI the parts that are difficult, the parts that are complicated. If there's something you really love to do, I really love to write. I'm not giving AI all my writing. No, you won't take it from me. And so look for those parts of your workflow that, are really complicated, that require sort of bringing a lot of signals together, or a lot of noise together to find the signals, and focus on that, not on the things that really kind of fill your cup in your work. Because at the end of the day, we're still humans and we still have to get, fulfillment out of our jobs. And so don't give that up.
Yeah.
And Nate, I would love to hear yours.
Yeah, Matt, I think that's an awesome one. And mine is, we talked a lot about AI today, and mine's also on AI. And I think, my advice is, we're, I think all, excited and terrified of the day when we can just press a button and AI will build our campaigns for us. But we're not there yet. Today's AI, is really best leveraged as an accelerator of human productivity. And I think the name of getting reliable value out of AI is to take advantage of the speed of AI, right? And to Matt's point, like give it the parts of your job that you hate, but ensure that humans are still the ones taking decisions and are still the ones that are really driving the voice of your brand and sort of managing the relationships that you're managing through your marketing automation solution.
Yeah, I think that's a great note to finish this part on. I want to thank our panel. What a great panel. I get to work with them every day, so you can be jealous. We do, though, want to go back over to Skylar because I think we have some audience questions, maybe.
We do. That was an amazing conversation. It was incredible to hear, your unique perspectives from your various roles. Thank you so much. We do have some questions from the audience, so let's see. I think this is a good one to start us off. What is one tool that every lean marketing team should have in its stack? If you had to pick one.
Yeah, I want to answer this one. Beyond your marketing automation platform and your CRM, which are kind of the gimmies, you really need those. But a tool like Canva is really essential. And we saw this in our data. We did a word cloud of our open-ended question about this, and like Canva's giant. It's so huge because so many people said Canva. And I mean, there's a good reason, right? It really empowers your whole team to create quality assets quickly, which is, how we're able to deliver with finite resources, right? We use it here. It's got great features that let you keep your brand consistent, content across things. We do have designers on our team, and so they're able to set things up in Canva very easily and allow the rest of our team to self-serve for some of the design assets so that we can really scale beyond what just, the dedicated designers could do. So a real human approach with technology coming together there. And I think focusing on easy to use tools is really a huge theme in all the research. If you want to get that full report that we put out about this, I would encourage you to. And so, it really is key, easy to use tools to helping lean teams succeed.
Yeah, I second Canva. Love it.
Yeah, I would love to jump in here. I think another way to really up level your marketing automation is using a tool that provides data enrichment and intent insights. It really saves time and really helps drive more success.
I love that. I think Jennifer mentioned earlier in the conversation that Canva makes me feel specifically more creative than I actually am. So love that tool.
Totally.
Awesome. I love this question because you guys did touch on ROI a lot so far in the conversation. How does one really make that business case for upgrading their marketing automation solution?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think if you're looking to make that business case, start by assessing your current marketing automation solution or your current marketing process, right? Are you sending highly targeted material out to specific audiences? Or are you blasting a lot of generic stuff that isn't overly relevant to a lot of contacts? Is your content actually viewable, right? Are your emails being sent in a manner where they're actually making it to the inbox? Are your social posts actually being posted in a way that the algorithm isn't suppressing them? Are you delivering content at the perfect moment based on off your contact's behavior? Think you should also want to think a little bit about sales, right? Are sales getting the leads and the leads intelligence they need quickly and time to act on them? And then last but not least, do you have the data insights to know what's working to both optimize your marketing activities, but then also like evidence the impact that the marketing team's activities are having on influenced revenue? If you go through, that list of questions and, if you're not using a robust solution like Acton, then, the answer to a lot of those questions is probably going to be no. And then from there, if you start to do the math in terms of the impact that would be had if you were to upgrade to a solution like Acton and improve a lot of the performance on those different dimensions, usually the business case is pretty overwhelming. And, it's a question we get a lot and, something we always happy to help prospects out with.
Yeah, and I guess I'm the one that likes to add on today, but two other things that we've talked about a lot today is, if your marketing automation solution, does it have AI integration, like particularly with like lead scoring recommendations, excuse me. And then also, how is it syncing with your CRM, and is it a bi-directional sync to give you the real-time insights, right? Like those are critical to your success.
I think we have time. Do you guys have time for one more?
Let's do it.
One more. What is a common mistake that you see small marketing teams make?
Ooh,
That's a tricky one.
I'm happy to take this one because to be honest with you, I see this sometimes with our customer base even. But you think like, oh, I'm getting a tool like a marketing automation platform and it's going to solve all of my problems. And then you start to use it and you're like, wait a minute, it's not. Well, there's a lot of tools out there that are very comprehensive and they do a lot of things, and marketing automation tools are one of those. And so, my keys to success when I'm talking to these customers is, don't bite off more than you can chew. This is a huge platform and it's going to take a lot of time to kind of like work the entire platform into your strategy and into your workflows. So really start where you're going to make the most impact, or start maybe on the place that you think is going to be the easiest, or sort of like the easiest to transition what you're doing today. And then build out a plan to say, okay, once like I've kind of like mastered this chunk, now I'm going to move on to the next section. And really kind of take baby steps and just a little bit at a time. Because if you try to like just spread yourself too thin all over everything, you're not going to be able to be efficient. You're not going to get the output that you were expecting, or the outcome that you were expecting either. And then you're not setting yourself up for success. And then eventually you're going to get to the point where you're going to say, oh, this tool failed me. And It's just not a good combination for anybody. So be careful. Don't bite off more than you can chew, but really like think about how any sort of tool that you're onboarding, it doesn't have to be marketing automation, like have a strategy and put it into your marketing plan, right? And figure out like how are you going to scale that tool. And I think that that's the way that you can really succeed as a small team is try to be strategic about how you're going to use something that's big and mighty.
Yeah, I want to add on to that because I think another part of it is it's all about planning, strategy, and process rigor. I think with a smaller team, you don't want to succumb to the sort of temptation of making it urgent all the time, right? You really want to be intentional. Really, on all teams, that's true, but especially on a small team because you can't afford to lose focus, right? So
Yeah.
really be intentional, really be strategic, and really follow your processes through. Don't follow trails that you don't finish.
Absolutely. What is the single most important metric, I guess, if you had to pick one, that a lean marketing team should be tracking?
I mean, it's hard to pick one. I think the most important outcome is the business impact. And I think as you look at the full journey and all of your marketing efforts, it actually is twofold. It is, business impact on sales and that revenue impact, but then also, customer success and looking at that retention. So the one is business impact with customer acquisition and revenue, and customer success and retention.
I like how you snuck in a few, Kat.
That's just the way. That's the theme.
And that you included retention in there is great too.
Right.
Yeah, you can't pick one when all of these things are working together. So I'll let you pass.
Thank you.
We have a bonus question. So I want to ask this, and this is for everyone to take it, where maybe you can all put your 2 cents. But what's a simple, low risk way for a team that is skeptical of AI to just kind of get started, get their foot in the door?
I mean, I love AI. If you can't tell, I've talked about it a lot in here, and I already made a plug for myself once, but I'm happy to make a plug again and talk to anybody about using it. You just have to start. Don't be scared. Start somewhere. Like there's a lot of free versions out there to kind of just like dip your toe in the water, if you will. I personally use ChatGPT a lot and then Gemini a little bit. We're like a Google suite, so Gemini is amazing for analyzing data in a Google Sheet, by the way. It's like if you don't like pivot tables, it will create amazing pivot tables for you. So highly recommend that, but just kind of like starting somewhere and starting with something little. I think Matt gave really good advice earlier about like AI is only as good as the prompt that you give it. And to be honest with you, I've spent a lot of time on like YouTube. I don't TikTok, but I've heard that there's some really good content on TikTok on like how to use AI. But I've taken like a few sort of like YouTube courses on how to use AI. And by the way, if you don't have time for that, just ask AI what you should do and how you should create a prompt, and it'll tell you. So if you're scared, like I'm happy to talk. What other tools, I don't know, are you guys using or do you prefer or tips do you have?
Yeah, I have one that I think is good for those who are skeptical, which is, well, and the preface to it is kind of what you said is like good prompts are hard. It is actually a skill that you need to develop, and I think we all should, to get that good output that you want. And so I would actually suggest starting with a small tool that does one or a few things and actually just leverages one of those LLMs and isn't actually the LLM itself. Don't necessarily go to ChatGPT and start typing, but find a tool. I'm not going to name drop them, but I'll talk about functionality. For instance, like there's a lot of tools that will take your long form video that you produced, like your webinar, for instance, and chop it up into bite-sized bits, add captions, do a lot of the editing for you, and you can easily make small adjustments. So like start with a tool like that that's tactical to show you sort of the value of it and what is possible. And then when you see some success there, sort of build on that into maybe the deep end of going into Gemini or ChatGPT and the actual LLMs themselves.
I think
go ahead, Nate.
no, you go ahead, Kat.
I was just going to say, like, I actually recently shared a post on LinkedIn that had like 8 different like marketing initiatives with the appropriate AI agent that helps you with recommendations. And there's also, I think both Microsoft and Google have AI classes and certifications available for free. I think that when you're looking at starting out, you can ask AI for its recommendations all day long, but you don't have to put it into you don't have to bring it to the light of day. I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's always good to experiment, test and learn and iterate. And I think that that is what, like, if you see something that AI recommends, you're like, oh, that makes sense to me. Like, put together a pilot plan and experiment and put together like what does success looks like, and then you can just grow it at scale. You can just like dip your foot in the pool. You don't have to like go all in right off the bat.
Yeah. And I think as others have said, just I think since we're all thrown in on this, asking finding that perfect prompt is the secret sauce, and it is tricky. And I think a great strategy that was introduced to me is while you're still learning to make that perfect prompt, is to ask an AI. It could be ChatGPT, it could be or Claude, just to interview you and say, look, I'm looking to make this decision, or to create this. Ask me 10 questions I should think about with regard to this topic. And
Yes,
then,
and then always tell it to ask you one question at a time, because then
yeah,
it'll ask you all 10 questions at once, and it'll
That
try to
that's another pro tip. But having it interview you like that kind of allows you to sort of step by step build your prompt with sort of AI kind of coaching you along the way. And again, that's a great way to get some really awesome output while still being kind of new at making the prompts.
Great tip.
That's a fun one to end on.
Yeah, that was a perfect ending. I mean, Jennifer, Kat, Nate, Matt, thank you so much for your time. This was an incredible collaborative discussion. Thank you, audience out there, for watching. And if you're interested, which I highly recommend, downloading the full Marketing Insights report, you can scan the QR code that is on the screen right now. There is also a plethora of additional resources and thoughtful discussions just like this directly on Acton's website and the content library. Highly recommend checking those out as well. Thank you again for joining. Thank you again, panelists, for your thoughtful conversation, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.
Thanks.
All right, take care.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.